Welcome to the Historical Boxing Society podcast. This is the story of a middleweight fighter named Kid Carter. Kid Carter stood 5'10", which is pretty big for a middleweight. 165 pounds is about his average. And these are some of the comments on one Kid Carter. Headline: Kid Carter, every inch a scrapper. If there is one man who I am always ready to go 100 miles to see in the ring, he is Kid Carter, formerly of Brooklyn. In every sense, strong and healthy man, there is a trace of the old spirit that once drifted men to the lists where armored knights thrust and hacked and battered one another, either for the fever of a lady or in a mere manly rivalry. There is same lore of clashing and conflict that for centuries before that age of chivalry made Alexander weep because he had no more worlds to conquer. In the olden days of the Northland, famed in song and legend, the Vikings swept the seas and sought plunder and pillage and sacked Paris itself. Descended upon these sunny shores, near the roof came the lineage of one Kid Carter. Kid Carter, in every sense of the ring, was a complete scrapper. He is very similar in size to that of another boxing legend in Kid McCoy. These are some of the comments from the newspaper. Kid Carter's science and shiftiness in this respect resembles the other and more noted pugilist scalp he is said to long after, in that of Kid McCoy. He talks that he is a game fighter and inflicts punishment with both hands rapidly. Kid Carter is great in close fighter and could do heap of punching with very short blows and a very short distance in the infighting. He became famous for his ability to take huge amounts of punishment and to rise above and perhaps get himself wins. His powers of quick recuperation were world renowned, very similar to that of Bob Fitzsimmons. Everyone in the house knew that a fight was in store when Ken Carter was in the ring. For in order to knock this man out, you would at least need to knock him down several times, as he had the ability to rise, and unlike some of the other fighters, his clinching work was phenomenon in order to get himself to survive through to the next round. In many of fights, he dodged knockouts in the most extreme of fashion by clinching and recuperating in the 1 minute's rest and swinging the tables on his opponent. That's the story of Kid Carter. As Carter only fought the 5 quick years, his manager used him up rather quickly, right towards the end of his career. As they stated in the newspaper, if he throws on a few pounds, he may find himself to be able to compete with heavyweights. Carter is really nothing more than a light heavyweight, and they put him in the ring towards the end of his career against one of the prime heavyweight fighters, one of the first real legitimate heavyweights, in Gus Ruhlin. And certainly in the 2 fights that they encounter, as Ruhlin just praises Carter for his ability to fight and be game and be a scrapper and take punishment. Gives him very high compliments. But unfortunately, this just kind of used up Carter's career, as he sailed the seas, and as quick as a comet, he came and went. As by the age of 23, he was done. And fortunate for Carter, he lived to be a very old man, as he, I think, died in the year 1935, when a lot of these other fighters were passing rather quickly. Carter having the fact that he gave up on the fight game and never really went back to it, he saved himself so much ring and tear and, losing his mind through the deterioration of boxing. And he saved himself all that and lived to be a very old fighter. He outlives most of these fighters of this era because he started so early, and he lived pretty deep into like the century of 1935. So this is going to be the story of one of the great middleweights, and he had a little bit more power than one Dick O'Brien. Very good power for a middleweight, Stanley Ketchel type of power. And so right at the turn of the year 1900 was one of the deepest and best crops of fighters, as many of these fighters just started taking off as they were all launched in a very concise period of time there of the late 1870 birth years. I was going to go over these quick, and I'll show you most of these fighters are all active in the year 1900. 73, we have Dick O'Brien. These are birth years. 73, Tom Sharkey. Joe Walcott. Matty Matthews. Rube Ferns. 74, Bonner. Jack Bonner. Joe Gaines. 76, we have the two famous fighters, Marvin Hart and Jack Rutt. The following year, 77, young Peter Jackson, George Gardner. 78, we have Jack Johnson, Jack O'Brien, Twin Sullivan, Jim Flynn, Mike Schreck, and George Cole. So every one of those fighters are going to be active in the year 1900. So that the last birth year there is 1879. And of course we have 1880 at the very beginning of the 1900 is Kid Carter fighting. At that point, he's 2 years into the decade, or into his career, and he fights for his years of 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23, that 5-year window. He's done at the age of 23, as I stated. He quits pretty early, and for just that little short reign, he makes a huge impact because the most exciting thing is that he's loaded with the competition level is just loaded there. And Kid Carter does one of the few things that some of the other fighters aren't doing, as he's taking on several of the top black fighters, such as Joe Walcott. He's going to fight in there, and he fights George Cole, and he even talks about fighting Jack Johnson, but it doesn't materialize. So he's going to face a cornucopia of some of the premium middleweights and fighters of the year as 1900. It's just stacked full of talent, and he's going to saw right through a lot of these competitions. As we get to go through careers of lots of the great fighters are going to intersect one Kid Carter. Anyway, this is the boxing profile is coming up of the famous Kid Carter.